Okay, so you went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yep.
So at that point, you knew you were going to go into acting.
At that point, I knew I thought I could. What was going to convince me was if I can get into this atmosphere of this thing and figure it out, which is really, listen, I'm one of these few guys, you know, you look at Kurt Russell on The View, right? What does he say? He says, hey, look, we live in fantasy land and there's people that protect us with guns, right? Okay, I'm kind of the same way about acting, you know what I mean? Acting is something that it's just make-believe, and for some people it's very difficult, the process, and for some who operate a different way in their imagination, it's very simple. For me, it's very simple, the acting stuff.
So you're going to film school, and your brother's career is starting to really take off.
Correct.
He's getting bigger and bigger roles. And then in 1988, you're about 22 years old. That's when you started actually getting roles.
Right.
You're on Family Ties at one point?
One of my first gigs was with Michael
Yes.
J. Fox on Family Ties.
Right.
But there's a funnier story, which is the American Academy of Dramatic Arts story.
Okay.
So that's a 3-year program. I only went to 1. So you have to be invited back. So it's literally that prestigious where you study fencing and ballet and commedia dell'arte, and you really get into the theater. And I was going to that school, and one of the big rules was you couldn't professionally audition for anything else while you were attending the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Huh.
I won't say names, but let's just say there was a big Broadway musical about the Beach Boys, if you could believe this or not.
Yeah.
Called Surf City. It was a big Broadway musical they did about Beach Boys music way back then. So I get into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I'm trying to, do my thing. I'm, youngest Baldwin brother, doing my own, Mr. Cool James Dean from Massapequa, if there's such a thing. And I don't say anything, and I sneak to this Broadway musical audition for the Beach Boys. What I don't know, Vlad, is they're filming it for the 5 o'clock news. So I literally go to this audition at night. I go to, literally the next day, I go to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I get a note on my locker that says you have to go see the principal at college. And I was not invited back for a second year. Just because I was kind of fast-tracking things in my learning curve, so to speak. And they found out that I had auditioned for this Beach Boys. It was really almost like in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was like me, no shirt on, hair slicked back, trying to do this whole thing. And to this day, Vlad, my name and photo now is in their alumni.
Even though you got expelled.
Even though they booted me.
Yeah.
I'm a recognized alumni.
Okay. Okay. So by 88, you were on Family Ties, but you also made your film debut in The Beast.
Right.
Your first movie.
Kevin Reynolds, the director.
Did you enjoy one more than the other in terms of movies or TV?
Yeah, definitely the experience of working as an actor on features is more fun to me and challenging than television, but that was back then. See, now television is features.
Yeah, it's long
Netflix,
movies now.
streamers, all this kind of stuff. So,
right.
And you're talking to somebody that learned all this and learned to appreciate the art form of filmmaking on 35 millimeter film. It's very different now. You know, 5 years ago, I was working on a project with a kid with a red camera out of college, and I was directing something. It was a music video, and and we finished, and he was editing, and then we were going to do some stuff for social media, and he was editing this one piece for me, and he turned around and he said, hey man, so I'm going to give you the first kind of cut of this whole thing, but it's going to be like a Netflix cut. I said, what does that mean, a Netflix cut? He goes, well, just the size and, the format will be done for Netflix. And there was a young editor, and I just looked at this kid and I said, please don't do that. I said, don't edit anything to any format. Just edit the story. Just edit the story. Just edit and focus on a great story. I don't care what everything else. I don't care if it's color correct. Just edit a great, focus on just a great. So you see how smarmy I'm being right now, which is, you know, you're talking to a guy that learned on film and learned how to make great films, how to work. You know, I've been blessed, dude. I got fired from Casualties of War. I've worked with Oliver Stone. I've worked with, you know, some brilliant people over the years.
So let's talk about that. So Casualties of War, Brian De Palma, was putting this thing together. Absolute legend. And you got hired to be in that film,
right?
But you didn't end up being in that film.
Right. I was supposed to play the third lead in the film, which what's the kid's name that was in Casualties of War? I always forget, that went on to make all the movies with Sean Penn. John C. Reilly. So John C. Reilly replaced me in Casualties of War while we were there already, having filmed for a couple of weeks. It's a very long story, Vlad. Do you want to hear the whole thing?
You could tell the whole thing. The part of the story that I found really intriguing was that when they fired you, they had already packed all your bags.
Exactly. Yeah,
like,
that was
they literally
Art
went
Linson
through
was that producer.
The big time Hollywood firing was no joke.
No, this was no joke at all.
Yeah.
So the story goes very quickly. I auditioned for Casualties of War to play to play this kind of very quirky character, you know, kind of a nervous kind of guy. And when I auditioned, I changed what was written in the script. So my first audition was Art Linson. My character Hatcher, I added like a lisp and a stutter, and I made him very quirky. So when I auditioned for Art Linson, he goes, "Why are you doing it like this? That's not in the script." I go, "Well, this is just the way I see the character." He goes, "Great. Can you go read for Brian De Palma in like 2 hours?" And I'm literally in New York City. This all happened in one day. I go see Brian De Palma. I read for him. He goes, "The guy's Hatcher. He doesn't have a stutter. He doesn't this. Why are you making him so weird?" I go, "Sorry, Brian De Palma. That's the way I see the character." He goes, "Great. Sean Penn has final casting approval on this movie. Can you go meet him in 2 hours at this restaurant?" All in one day. I auditioned, but I brought a different take on the character. That once we got over to Phuket, Thailand, and we were working on the film, they just felt like that wasn't working anymore, and they changed it, which is total bullshit. It was for a lot of other reasons that were Sean Penn upset with me.
Did you and Sean Penn become cool after that, or not really?
I don't think he's losing any sleep over me, man. He's got a new gal, and he's blessed. But,
that's right.
But it is funny just because when you say to me family ties, right? So think about this. I do Family Ties with Fox, one of my first gigs. I get Casualties of War with Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn.
Yeah, he's in that too.
And in that final approval meeting, this is one of the other jokes about that story, is I meet Sean Penn, who's at the time is one of my heroes.
Yeah.
And he kind of still is. He's a brilliant actor. You can't take that away from him. But when I meet him for this movie, he starts telling me, when we get over there, I'm the drill sergeant. I'm the head of the whole platoon. You guys are all under me. I'm the leader. So when we get there, we're doing method. We're doing this. Don't talk to Sean. Don't talk to Mike Fox. He's like kind of starts dictating to me how it's all going to go once we get to Thailand. And I'm playing this character that's very difficult to play in the physiology of the character. And in that meeting, with the approval meeting, I basically, as crazy as this seemed, I almost blew the gig because I had to look at Sean Penn and say, "I don't want to be rude right now, but these guys just called you and said, you know, meet Baldwin because we think he'd be great for this role, and he's different. He's doing something different." I said, "What I'm doing with this is going to be so physically debilitating on me." I said, "Do me a favor. You just do your thing and just leave me alone and let me do my thing. But don't tell me don't be friends with Michael J. Fox." He's like, no, you're going to do it like this. And I went, "Okay." But when we got over there, like an idiot, the first thing I did was, "Mike Fox, wow, hey, remember me from Family Ties?"
You yourself, have you ever done method acting, or is that not really you?
Yeah, no, I've implemented, algorithms of method acting, sure.
Right. Because I remember I mean, I've interviewed different directors, like the Hughes brothers and stuff like that. And, like, for example, they've directed Denzel, who sometimes method acts.
Right.
And they say that sometimes it's very difficult on the cast when you have a guy that's just refuses to get out of that character ever, and it starts to kind of aggravate people and so forth. Did you ever find that working with method actors?
Well, I've worked with actors who kind of blurred those lines in the personal thing. I worked with a guy named Don Harvey once. Didn't think this day would come, did you, Don Harvey? Great actor. But like we were somewhere like on a break from shooting. It was Casualties of War again. And we were working on something and we were having lunch and he flipped out on me in this public setting. Like just like started yelling at me and raised his voice and kind of did all this shenanigans. And I kind of was like, wow, what was it something I said, The next day he turns around and he's like, I'm just messing with you, man. We're making the movie and I'm just going to... He was just pulling like a method exercise, so to speak.
Yeah.
So for me, I learned a bad lesson early. If you remember the old Laurence Olivier story from Marathon Man, right? Have you heard that story where he tells Dustin Hoffman?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's a legendary story on Marathon Man where Dustin Hoffman has to do a scene where he's been up all night. So he comes to the movie set. They're shooting that scene. He comes in the makeup trailer, and Laurence Olivier is sitting next to him. And Dustin Hoffman's talking to the makeup artist. He's like, oh, well, I haven't slept. I've been up all night because the scene requires that I've been up all night. And he explains everything to the makeup artist. And all of a sudden this voice goes, you really should try acting sometime. It's a true story. Olivier literally says to him, why knock yourself out, man, when you can just kind of pretend?
Yeah.
So, great story.